How do you think intermarriage is helping or hurting Jewish engagement in St. Louis?
Yeah. So number one, I think that you have to understand historically how the Jewish community has responded to the situation that we used to call intermarriage, but I would just call you have two faith couples or two or multi-faith families. The first instance, which is the old school, you sat Shiva, the person's dead.
It literally happened.
It literally happened. The second is you held your nose when they got married, and maybe you welcomed them reluctantly back in the community, but you really expected the spouse to convert and to raise the kids Jewishly. The third phase was saying, well, all right, they're intermarried, but let's do what we can. Let's ignore the other faith, and we'll just try to make them Jewish. And I think communities around the country are now realizing that multi-faith is multi-faith. And, you know, from religious or theological reasons or ideological reasons, okay, people disagree with that, but that's the facts on the ground. Right. And I think that certainly the Federation is here to serve any point of access to the Jewish community and not make those preconditions. So I would say that it is to understand, not only reluctantly accept that there are families with multiple faiths, but also say, hey, we understand that some of you are going to be going to family events with the non-Jewish half that are explicitly non-Jewishly religiously celebrated. We can't be in a position of making people feel bad about their heritage.
How do you assess the job Federation is doing to engage the local Jewish community, including the non-affiliated community?
This is great. So first of all, and this gets back to your intermarried piece, we aren't going to have a Jewish community in St. Louis if the St. Louis region continues on the trajectory that it is. The good news is there's very little place to go but up.
Up, right.
But we as a federation in the last 5 years have significantly expanded our view of what it is we do and how we operate.
Right.
And we've expanded by saying we have to find mission-related opportunities to grow our own region. Best example of this is in the Israel space. We have been advocates for growing economic partnerships between Missouri and St. Louis in particular with business in Israel. So the Federation was the lead non-governmental organization that advocated for the formation of a Missouri state trade desk in Israel. That was in 2014. So the continued racial divides, the continued challenges that we're seeing with the perceptions of policing, the fragmentation of local government, the separation between city and county. I mean, you can list all of them. The JCRC is the organization that takes the lead on the policy issues and the advocacy issues. But Federation often operates in a much quieter space, sort of mobilizing key leadership to make a difference and make an impact. The Federation was one of the few nonprofits in the region that funded the Ferguson Commission, that was a funder of it. We weren't a significant funder. It was $1 million we provided as requested. It was either a $5,000 or $10,000 grant. But we did that because we saw the importance of our role in working with others for progressive change. I have to tell you, we are ready to serve. We are ready to be involved in that. And I think the challenges are, does the leadership outside of our community view us as a partner? And I think we have a lot of work to go on that. I think we need to move, and I have been trying to do this quite personally, and also just in how we're operating, in educating around the core ideals that ground what it means to be a Zionist and why Israel is important. And I think, you know, we've lost this. I wrote this in an editorial that I wrote last summer, but it's worth repeating. When we have challenges in the United States, we have disagreements, generally we can accept that disagreements about leadership, policy, and laws are not disagreements about our love of America.
Right.
And we need to get to a place where for Israel we can say, here's what we love about Israel. And I believe the three pillars upon which Israel stands that can generate a lot of alignment are, number one, the need of self-defense and how Israel stands both for statist anti-Semitism as well as popular anti-Semitism, a bulwark against that. Number two, as the source of flourishing for the Jewish people and Jewish culture. And there's no place like it, you know, maybe New York City, but where you have a commitment and the arts, the intellectual ferment, all of that. So it's the negative, the prevention of the negative, the promotion of the positive, and number three, all of it done consistent with a commitment to universal human rights, democracy, and justice. The fact that you have national leadership being able to stand up and say, government of Israel, that was wrong, publicly, to be a tremendous maturing and strengthening of the state of Israel. You had Michael Oren, the former ambassador of the United States, publicly criticizing his boss, or his former boss, Netanyahu, this summer for decisions he made. You had AIPAC, you had a major national organization publicly criticizing. Number one, I see that as positive in terms of the strength of Israel. And number two, I think you're right, Bob, that we have gone too far. If we're going to do that, which I think shows a maturing, that we can talk maturely about it, we also have to be willing to stand up and say, hey folks, everyone noticed what they're doing with Syrians who are fleeing in the north? Let's talk about that. Let's tell that story, which is really positive. There's still, in my mind, within the organized community, too much of what I've called elsewhere growing American Jewish McCarthyism, a quashing of debate, a quashing of the ability to speak freely, to say, look, what's going on in the West Bank is leading to Israel's destruction, and that's whether or not you think the Palestinians should be given a state, or whether or not you think the Palestinians should continue to stay in the role that they are. You have to recognize that. But
sure.
To be able to talk about that, frankly, is very difficult.
Some people have kind of remarked, maybe in a critical way, that the renovation of the Federation building is not necessary, that the money could have been spent on other things.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, thank you, I appreciate that. The building is 35 years old. We were facing three significant renovations that had to get done. Number one, security. Number two, accessibility, handicap accessibility. And number three, infrastructure. The elevator was literally the infrastructure of it. We needed to take the elevator out and replace it with a whole new system. Those were significant dollars. Those were seven-figure dollars. We then said, well, what do we do? Do we tear down the building? Do we rebuild? Do we renovate? We're not going to invest that much money and not take an extra step to do the renovations that are necessary for the next 20 years. So I appreciate that view. If the view is Federation doesn't need a facility, that's worth discussing. Why does Federation need a facility at all? But if we have a facility, maintaining it at top level has to be part of what we do. Number one, I think there's a tremendous amount of pride. You see somebody not only who's Jewish, but who's from Chesterfield. I think he's from Chesterfield, but
Yes.
become the governor of the state who's Jewish, who grew up in UH, and boy, that's exciting. That's wonderful. It's lovely. Number two, as I said to you, we build strong relationships with anyone in government because we're a community organization. We have to partner. We have to find areas of alignment. It's no secret that the politics of the Jewish community are different than the politics of the current administration, generally speaking. But that fact does not matter to us. What matters to us is we need to find areas of alignment where we both are on the same page. We all, the governor and the Jewish community, want a strong, vibrant St. Louis region. We want a strong, vibrant Missouri. We want to combat anti-Semitism. We want to form strong links with Israel. There are multiple ways that we align, and so we look to